It is day number 98 of the self-quarantine today here in Los Angeles. There was a big announcement that was shared today by the Los Angeles Mayor's office and the LA City Hall that businesses can now start to open. And there's these three businesses can now open here in Los Angeles County. Nail salons, bars, and tattoo parlors. If you remember on my previous week where I said that California was entering phase 3 of opening certain businesses, those were the businesses that were included. California allowed all of its counties to open those businesses, nail salons, bars, and tattoo parlors. But it was up to the county to make that final decision to allow those businesses to open. So today, Los Angeles said that gave them the green light for those three businesses to open in LA County. Something else I also wanted to add of something that I said in my previous video yesterday, and I wanted to clarify the California mask mandate that was ordered by Governor Newsom, the governor of California, and also all of the California health officials all around the state. And I wanted to basically said that these are the guidelines of masks, when are they required and when masks are not required. So these are the guidelines of when masks are required. So this is how it goes. Inside or in line to enter indoor public spaces, in hospitals, pharmacies, medical clinics, or other health care offices, while waiting for or riding public transportation, taxis, or ride-sharing services, most workplaces. So it depends on the work that you're doing and what the rules are if masks are required there. So you just have to ask your job if you are one of the people that are lucky enough working back at a job. And at any outdoor public space if closer than 6 feet from others. So that means, like, I've seen certain parks that says that if you can be in a group of people, you have to wear your masks. So all of those guidelines that I just said, that means that you have to wear a mask. Now let's go to the other side. Masks are not required. When does that happen? So I'm going to give you the guidelines right now. Children aged 2 and under, they don't need masks. Persons who are hearing impaired, they don't need any mask. Persons for whom wearing a face covering would create a risk related to their work. So again, it has to do with their work. Depending if it endangers them, they don't have to wear a mask. And then lastly, persons who are engaged in outdoor recreation when alone or with household members, so family members. So if you are with your family members, if you live with your family, there is no need to have your mask on if you're on your yard or on your property. But in the minute you have a guest that is not your family, that's when you need the mask. So I just wanted to just summarize how the mask rule is going on all of California, and also how does it relate here in Los Angeles. So far that's what's happening here in LA and the rest of the state of California. Today is not just any ordinary day. It's not just June 19th. Something significant happened 155 years ago in the United States. Today is Juneteenth. So what is Juneteenth? What happened that day? So Juneteenth is commonly known as Black Independence Day by African Americans. And a lot of you are thinking, Independence Day, don't you mean 4th of July? Well, let me give you a little bit of a history lesson. So Independence Day, 4th of July, 1776, it commemorates the day that the United States declared itself as an independent nation, independence away from the British Crown, from Great Britain. However, slavery was still legal, and you have to remember, and it's important to acknowledge, that independence did not include everyone. It only included white people in that regard, because even though in the document it said all men are created equal, you have to remember who wrote that document in that point in time. Thomas Jefferson, a famous writer, right? One of the greatest minds, one of the founding fathers, however, a slave owner, and we cannot forget that. The second thing I also wanted to add as well, something that happened after the Revolutionary War. right? After the United States won their independence and the British surrendered formally in 1781, when the Constitution was made, it meant that slavery was one of the ways to keep the Union from dissolving, making sure that all the United States, the 13 colonies, became the United States. And that was unfortunate because when the original U.S. Constitution was written, it said, and you can read it, that African Americans who were slaves only counted as 3/5 as a person. And they virtually had no rights in the South and hardly had any rights in the North as well. So they were fighting an uphill battle. Now, fast forward 90 years later, right? Now the Civil War is going on between the North and the South. And now you're saying, well, what about Abraham Lincoln and the Emancipation Proclamation? Well, let me tell you something about that. Even though the Emancipation Proclamation came into effect in 1863, when Abraham Lincoln did that speech, it did not instantly free the slaves. And you have to remember when you read that speech, it said that it freed the slaves from the South, right? However, there were still slave owning states in the North, so that didn't include them. So you're saying to a group of territories at that time that wasn't yours, that were a separate sovereign nation at the time, that was that dissolved the Union, there were traitors, and you basically said that after the war was won from the North, that's when it came into effect, right? So you have to remember your history. It took 2 years for the news of freedom to reach every part of the country, and Texas was the last one to find out after the Emancipation Proclamation. So after the Civil War was over, it basically meant that all slaves were free. You have to remember the 13th Amendment. Virtually illegal to own any slaves of any kind. That was the 13th Amendment. So what happened in Juneteenth? Well, this is what happened. So in 1865, Union troops arrived in Texas. It was one of the last states that was still practicing slavery at the time. And with the Union troops came with news and told everyone in Galveston and all over Texas that the remaining slaves were free. And when those 250,000 slaves heard that, it was jubilation. It was the news that gave them that feeling of liberation, freedom, and independence. It's a day that is celebrated and symbolizes the official end of slavery. So a lot of people say, well, why do we celebrate it? Well, this is the reason why. We celebrate Juneteenth as a symbolic day of liberation for Black Americans. It's a day to reflect on the past and time to educate ourselves on the necessary growth needed to dismantle oppressive systems around the world, and even here in the United States. So, Juneteenth, not many schools teach it. However, I have to give a shout out to my history teacher that did teach it to us during my AP US History, Mr. Fairbanks. Thank you so much for giving us that history lesson. I'll never forget that. And you always taught us really right. Just giving you a shout out. But it was taught unless you were in an advanced course of U.S. history. But a lot of history books, they don't talk about that. Or even some schools don't even mention it at all. And even though some states celebrate it, it's not a federal holiday. It's not a federal holiday. And that's going to change because ever since with the Black Lives Matter movement that is going on, now there is a push to make Juneteenth a federal holiday. Even just yesterday, Governor Newsom announced that California is on the road to make Juneteenth a federal holiday. And I believe the rest of the 50 states of the United States will follow suit soon. And everywhere in America, Juneteenth will finally be a federal holiday. We might be seeing history before our very eyes. So, something that I just wanted to share about the importance of today and what it symbolizes. Black Independence Day, a day of liberation, freedom, and it symbolizes the end of slavery. Regarding the coronavirus here in Los Angeles, the number of cases has risen to over 79,000 people, Angelenos that have been contracted with the COVID-19, and the number of deaths in Los Angeles because of COVID-19 has risen to almost 3,000 people. And a lot of the health experts are saying, please get tested, make sure to practice social distancing, and make sure that you wear your face mask to protect yourselves and others. So that is it for today's video. So everyone, stay strong, stay safe.